All right, we've got what is probably our final installment of the 3-gun pistol build for practical class, formerly tactical class. Got our parts back in from Robar Guns here. So in front of us, we've got our slide coated in the Poly T2 finish in OD green. So remember that Poly T2 finish it's an epoxy-based finish with Teflon as part of the finish, so a nice slick surface. We've also got the magwell in OD green. We've got our barrel, again in Poly T2 in burnt bronze. We've got some of our smaller frame parts, our slide release lever. Okay, that's in burnt bronze. We've got our takedown lever in burnt bronze. We've got this is an extended magazine release in burnt bronze. I left the what is it called? The slide racker in just the anodized black for when it's in place. And then we got when our sights are back in place, we have a black on black dark color, so the brighter, it's not really bright, but not to mess up the eye with the rear sights. Yeah, it is what it is. It looks fine. Other parts are going to be black too, but I decided to keep this black for that reason. So that was just kind of laying out there. And then we have our internal frame components, our sear block and our takedown lever area housing, the front rails basically. These are finished in the NP3 coating, which is the nickel-based electrolysis finish, again with Teflon in it. It's really interesting, or it's really cool actually. It feels slippery. So this is the second time I've handled Poly T2 parts. The other parts you'll see in another video when that gets posted about refinishing a Mosin Nagant. But it's really cool. It's actually slippery feeling. The Poly T2 finish has a relatively slick feeling to it as well, but not nearly as much as the NP3 finish. So basically what we're going to be going through here is a little reconstruction montage. I'll go into a couple details here and there, but for the most part, we're just going to build this in a time-lapse footage like you've seen in a couple of the other videos. Again, I'll stop and point out some things of interest along the way. So we'll get started now. So the first thing we're going to reinstall is going to be our extractor. See, that's missing there. Really simple. It's just one pin, one spring, and the extractor part itself. That wasn't coated with anything. That's just going to be black in there. No big deal. So order of operations, how I'm going to be putting this back together, based off of just my time and what's going on in the rest of the real world. Low-hanging fruit first. Like I said, that extractor's going in. You know, we can install the barrel. Well, put the spring in, you know, it's installed. That's a last minute type of thing. But basically we'll be installing that simple thing there. I've got to do some shaping on our striker block. Okay, fortunately I have 2 striker blocks to work with. The Apex striker block is in my other competition pistol. So we're going to be radiusing the edge of that. So you can see right here how that's a chamfer, or that straight edge, okay, about a 45 degree. That's going to get rounded over, okay, so it's radiused, the radius of a circle. So it's a smoother contact point between the trigger, part of the trigger bar. I'll pop that out of this other bag. I keep stuff in baggies. Yeah, keep everything organized. So that's the engagement of the striker block and the trigger bar right there, that point. So as that trigger is getting pulled, it slides against there and pushes up there to disengage the block. So the smoother the radius, okay, the smaller the actual contact point. So a round surface versus a flat surface. So this will smooth out the trigger pull a whole lot. So that'll be what we have to do before assembling the rest of the slide, because the striker block is held in place by the rear sight. So that'll have to happen. I'll have a whole separate little section in this video of doing that. So without further ado, let's put the extractor back in real quick. So the extractor is back in place. It's just that simple pin driven through the bottom there. You can see that right here. Let's focus. Focus. There we go. So that pin driven through the bottom, that extractor in there, the spring set right behind there. That's it. That's the easy, super easy part right there. All right. Next, we're going to, next is going to be the striker block. So we're going to have a cut to setting up to do that and explaining what's going on there. All right, so we got everything set up to do the striker block here. So I'm going to pick up the tripod and we're going to move around a little bit real quick. So I got my drill with the striker block set in there. I have it set on low speed. The clutch really doesn't matter. So I'm basically using this as a lathe. All right, so we got that spinning. I'll be using one hand to control that. I might use a zip tie to hold it down. And then what we're doing, we're using a file with wet dry sandpaper on it. So we're just using the file as a backer, as a nice strong surface to press against the hard metal. We also have a sponge soaked with cold water that will be dabbing. We're going to dab it, keep this metal cool. Very important to keep this metal cool while we're shaping it so we don't destroy the temper. We're not removing a lot of material either. Okay, remember there's that chamfer there. We're going to turn it into a radius. So do a little bit with some 220, cool it down a little bit with 220. You'll see in the stop motion how this is going to work. So thinking about it right now, I'm probably just going to take a zip tie and we're going to keep it on a, that might be about as fast as we go. You'd think that maybe you want to go fast. You really don't actually. You want to keep that speed at a slower speed, make sure you're getting good contact and not heating the metal up too much. So I'm even just going to start with just cooling it down a little bit, even more than room temperature. Okay, so we just got it cool. We'll find what grit is this. That's 400. This is 220. So we'll be starting there. So again, we're switching over into time lapse and we'll have a comparison of a Virgin Pro striker block versus a Radius Pro striker block. All right, so we got our striker block radiused, just moving some stuff around. Got it in my hands here. We went up to 1000 grit. So you can see how that's now more rounded. So the harsh edge is gone. Where's my other striker block? Aha, it's in this Apex package here. So this one came out of my my other M&P. So on the right is untouched. On the left is radiused. So you see on the left, there's no longer a sharp edge. So having that rounded surface is going to smooth that trigger pull up a lot. So this is M&P Pro Series from the factory. Still plenty fine. But now on the left we have it refined. Okay, nice and smooth, radiused edge. So that'll smooth it out and it might actually even reduce our trigger pull fractions of a pound. So got an extra just in case. That was nice to be able to do that stress-free without worrying about messing it up. So we got that striker block. Got our drill over here. So, okay, so next we're going to be installing said striker block and everything. So I'll just kind of be rearranging the workspace real quick, and then we'll get on with the next parts of the slide. All right, so we got everything rearranged. We got the new tool, or next tools out. We've got our sight tool, which we'll be needing to reinstall the sights and that striker block. So again, this will all be done in time lapse, but let's go over what's going to happen first. So our striker block is inserted top down, okay, through here, and then that rear sight slides over the top of it, holding it in place, okay? So we've got our radiused and polished striker block going rounded side down, getting dropped right in there, holding in place there, so it comes through there. So you see that side. Then we have our spring. This is the stock spring and retention cap. So that just slides in there. So that gives us our spring pressure to keep that striker block in place. So without further ado, rear sight is back in. As you saw, I taped up the sides to protect it in the sight adjustment tool. We got everything centered there. We got that Novak. This is the stock sight, Novak. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. There we go, Novak. So we got our Novak competition sights. Rear sight is installed. A little bit of thread locker in the set screw in there. You probably saw that Talon adjustment tool holding that striker block in place. Very handy tool, comes with the Apex kits. Next, we'll just put in that front sight real quick while we already got our sight adjustment tool out. We'll get that in right now. And we got our sights back in. So you can check that out. Got our nice green fiber optic up front. Our Novak sights stock on this model. Ooh, love how it's coming back together. It's getting exciting. All right, so we got that striker block back in place now with those sights, okay? Striker block there. We've got our extractor. We've got our front and rear sight back in. We're going to move our sight adjustment tool out of the way. What do we got next? What's next? Oh, whew, awesome. This is getting easy now. Easy. You may have noticed I used a little dab of blue Loctite, blue 242. Isn't that like a football count thing? Blue 42, 242. I don't know. I don't know football, whatever. So what we have remaining, our barrel and recoil spring. That's obviously an easy drop in. So the last part for the slide is our striker, which I've already replaced the striker with the Apex competition striker spring on there. This I'm not going to do in time lapse because it's so easy. Okay, so that is going to simply drop into that channel there. Oh yeah, we now have our striker block in place. So see how this isn't moving forward? Once this is depressed, let's use a little tool to get my fingers out of the way. This is depressed. That allows the striker to now move freely. Okay, so this part is going to go down. Let's see here, I'll move the camera because I'm actually, let's use our tool. Get our Apex tool, get that balanced in there. We have our retention plate that's also doubling as our slide racker. that's it. Striker is now in place. So we got that Springer Precision. You got that SP down there. Springer Precision striker retention plate and slide racker. So let's see here. We got our striker block in place, moving freely. We got our striker moving freely. Everything's good there. Off camera, I already tested that the ejector is fitting in place correctly with a piece of empty brass. All right, what do we got left? For a second, I'm like, what are those pins in there from? I left those in there from disassembly, so they're in the exact orientation they need to be to go back in. Ooh, smart. So let's drop that barrel in. Easy field strip part. Blue end goes forward. Push that into place. And we have a complete slide now. Looks good. Love it. We got that burnt bronze detailing. Slide is ready to rock. Okay, next up is going to be starting to put the frame back together. That's simple and not simple at the same time. Some of the things are easier than the others. We'll get the frame, and just like before, we'll start with the low-hanging fruit. All right, we got the frame back out. Just brought down a magazine for test fitment for other parts. One thing we can test fit real quick is just our mag well. We test fit it before we sent it out. Make sure it was all good. Taking out the takedown tool. Yep, that still fits just fine. Wouldn't expect anything otherwise. So we got that on there. Let's just do, that's obviously not going to slide on, there's no rails. Let's just put this together real quick, see how it's going to kind of look. Oh yeah, I'm digging that. I'm liking that a lot. How do you like it? You like it? That's right. You better like it. All right, anyway, moving on. So that fits. That's going to be the last thing to really get installed because I need the frame open. Actually, yeah, I could go on there, whatever. I'll still kind of probably put it on last. I just don't want it to be in the way when we're using the block here. So I'm even just going to take off the back strap for now. I don't need that on. So the first thing we're going to put in, like I said, low-hanging fruit, is our magazine release. So inside here, you can kind of see that little silver dot right there. That's the spring. Okay, this is really easy. Sliding this in. Actually, I'm going to take a flat blade screwdriver to pull that spring out of the way. Kind of tricky, kind of simple. Let's try it from the other way. Basically, you got to get the spring, yeah, here we go, there we go. Got to get the spring past those notches. And then you just simply push the spring into the catch and the inside. And we now have a working magazine release. We got that extended magazine release. Locks right in, drop free. Let's check that out with the mag well real quick. All right, we're starting to come together. Looking real good. Okay, so the next thing that actually has to go together are the rails our rails, have to get those small parts back in there. Our trigger. Now we got our small parts in here, including that flat face sear kit. Apex ram, or basically we got our apex parts here. Woo! Yeah. Here we go. Now you can see them. So we got the apex ram, which goes in the sear block. We've got our forward set flat face trigger. I'll just get that out. That's the stock. Let's see. This is the flat face sear. This is what we need. So we'll have that out. Our old striker block. Our trigger return spring. Our competition trigger return spring and sear spring. That ram. Small parts there. Yeah, I'm actually going to take a break. I'm going to be doing this probably actually on another day. I got some other stuff to do around the house, but that'll be the next thing, and the video will be all one part. So I'm taking a break. It'll be all one video for you, so we'll take a break now. All right, we're back. It's a few days later in real time. It's milliseconds in movie time. So putting the rest of this gun back together, we're going to do this all in time lapse, but I'll do a quick review of the last things that are going to happen. We've got the handy Dremel, or it's a Craftsman brand, but it's made by Dremel. Yeah, whatever. With our felt wheel, I've got my polishing compound behind me. That will be used on some of our metal-to-metal contact points, such as this area here. Let's get this a little closer. So this is the part of the trigger bar that activates or deactivates the striker block, pushing it out of the way. So we're just going to polish it. We're just smoothing it so that interface between it and the striker block are nice and glassy. The candy cane here, which interfaces with the sear itself, we're going to polish that little part there. We're not removing metal, we're just smoothing it out, okay? That's really important to remember, especially with these components, because if we remove metal, we could really mess up our trigger permanently, and it won't work, okay? We'll be putting on the flat-faced trigger, apex trigger there. All right, so swapping those out. Reassembling the striker block. We got my little baggie of parts over here. We got our apex ram. We got our rest of our competition springs. All the other parts going back together. We got our forward set sear in here. So, without further ado, we're going to switch over into that time lapse and finish it out. And we're done. Had a couple kerfuffles, mess ups, foobars, not really foobars. You saw the camera fall over when I was putting those pins in there. That was just kind of funny. Okay, whatever. I did the front rails 3 times. Forgot to put all the components together at the same time. Oh well, good practice, right? Everything's working perfect. Got that. Got that super nice reset. Super short trigger pull. Let's get out that trigger gauge. Let's see what we got. So we saw polishing those components internally. The installation of the apex parts. Let's see what we got. 3 pounds. 2.75. Just under 3. So that's exactly where I wanted it. Right around that 3 pound mark. Super insanely short reset. Look at that. That's hot. Loving it. Got that row bar finish, internal, external, apex parts, Smith & Wesson M&P. Can't beat it. Except when you add a little bit of this. Gonna throw some frog lube in there. Just barely any is all we need now, though, on those rails. Just gonna dab some on my fingers, rubbing it on those contact points, because all that NP3 finish and the Poly T2 finish in there. Only next step, other than throwing just barely a little bit of lube in there, is taking it to the range and testing it out. I got the first outdoor 3-gun match, or 3-gun match in general, of our local season coming up in a couple weeks. Get this test fired, get it sighted in. Might have to adjust the sights a little bit depending on where things are. Whew, I am excited that this is done. So I'll take some nice pictures of this for my Instagram account too. So check that out. Follow me on Instagram at 2A Gunsmithing, and also my competitive page at James Dickinson Shooting. Links are below. I'm excited. Are you excited? You should be excited. So without further ado, like, share, subscribe. Have a great rest of your day.